So we've got it all nicely matted up just here, and it does change the model and sort of brings the model to life that bit more. It sort of really shows you sort of the end result. It is a last bit of spraying that I really love to do. Now with this one I have moved a little bit along with the cockpit, right, because we have already spent quite a bit of time on our cockpit here. All I've done is basically we've unmasked everything. Now a little bit of a tip, the blue tack I used, I basically sort of left it on for a little bit too long. Now normally I've never had any sort of problem before, but with this one the F-18 really sort of stayed in that sort of spraying stage, deckling stage for a very long time, and basically the blue tack seemed to really almost start to weld to the paintwork and everything, right? So as a little bit of a tip, if you're leaving a model for a long time before you actually sort of remove the blue tack from all our cockpit area, be prepared that the blue tack just seems to go a bit funny and starts to eat into the paintwork. And when you try and pull off the blue tack, I really had a hard time sort of getting it all up because it just stuck down, and as I was pulling it up, it was pulling up the paintwork and everything. So just as a little note, I've had to, you know, try and remove all this blue tack. Then I've been sort of repainting around the edges where the blue tack was. It did rip up a bit of photo etch as well, so I had to sort of glue that down and everything. Just keep that in mind if you know you're going to be spending a long time spraying and deckling. You know, we're talking like, you know, 6 months plus here. If you're going to be doing something like that, probably best not to use blue tack to seal in your canopy area. Maybe just stick with normal masking tape and sponges and all that kind of cool stuff. So apart from that, that was a bit of a pain. Remove the canopy mask off of the canopy. Just as a little sort of tip, once you've removed the canopy mask, always a good idea to get a cotton wool bud, make it a little bit moist with water or something, and all we simply do is just sort of wipe down the canopy area just to sort of clean it up, get off any leftover residue from the actual masking tape, or, you know, sometimes we have like the weathering washes that can sort of seep in and seep under. They are pretty sort of easy to remove. If it is a little bit stubborn, get out some pure IPA, little bit on your cotton wool bud, sort of roll it on a kitchen paper towel so it's just damp, it's not soaking wet, and then sort of rub at your canopy area. Don't do that if you've dipped your canopy, because you'll just sort of rehydrate all the you know, whatever sort of canopy gloss you're using to dip it in, it'll just rehydrate that and make a big mess. But if you haven't done that, you've just polished it, you know, a bit of IPA will clean up any sort of weathering wash that's got underneath there. So that's the canopy area. Now we're moving into these final stages of doing all our weapons, right? So just tip this upside down. As you can see, I've already made a start on it, but what I normally do is, if we just get one of our pylons just here, right, I always like to go off and just plain and simply use good old super glue, right? You can use, if you want, you can use Tamiya extra thin cement to glue these down, but I just find with pylons, weapons, landing gear, you always have this sort of, they're just hanging off the model, right? They don't quite glue as nice, right? Because the problem is when you've got like paint in the way, Tamiya extra thin cement has to melt through the paint before it can melt through the plastic to glue it all. And if you accidentally break it with Tamiya extra thin cement, just like the landing gear, you end up sort of like ripping the plastic off, and you end up with a nasty break. Whereas super glue is cracking because it just makes a nice clean break, and you can simply clean off the super glue, right, and then you can re-super glue it, and you shouldn't have any nasty breaks. So pretty much all the time it's sort of good to use the good old super glue. So I'm just putting some blobs of super glue on our pylon just here. Right, I probably should have test fitted this first before I actually start gluing it in, but there we go. and then that should bite pretty quickly. And then while it's just setting, I just quickly like to sort of get the Mark 1 eyeball, look straight at the model, look at the wing, and make sure it's looking at a nice 90-degree angle. Just close one eye and make sure that's at a nice 90-degree angle. And basically we do the same with the weapons, we do the same with the fuel tanks. Now with the weapons and the fuel tanks, we have our good old remove before flight tags. So remove before flight tags, really nice bit of photo etch that you can get from Edard. These things are really cool. Do you know what, I think I remember seeing that they've done proper fabric ones now. I can't remember, it was a few years back, but anyway, the Edard photo etch, really cool. As you can see, you know, really nice sort of detail on there, nice writing, and it's printed both on back and front. Right, these are really easy. Don't worry about too much about cutting them off the sprue, because with remove before flight tags, we don't want them to look all just flat and straight like it's a piece of metal. We want to start bending it. Now we could put this in some tweezers and start bending it, right, and we just bend, doesn't matter how. I like to just use my nail, to be fair. Right, it's just a little bit more nicer on the metal and the paintwork that's on here. Just give it a load of bends and creases. Right, it's going to look all pretty sort of creasy, but then I like to sort of straighten it out a little bit after doing those bends. So I'm just pressing down and pushing it. Right, and as you can see, I've sort of straightened it out a bit, but you've got all these kinks still in there. Let's see if you can focus in, and it just starts to look like a bit of fabric rather than a straight piece of metal. Right, so with this, what we want to do, what we can do, we can glue on our fuel tank first. Right, glue on the fuel tank first, and then we can put on the photo etch. But if you really want to, you can sort of get down, look where you'd be putting our photo etch, which I do. Right, and I can see there's a tiny little gap for it to go in there. So what I like to do is, if we get this, right, and start to shape it to the fuel tank. So what we're kind of representing is here in the middle where we've got our two holes, that's where it's going to be glued, and then we just sort of try and bend it around our piece just here. It doesn't always go quite round, so you might want to be just sort of giving a bit more of a bend, but only a little bit. And just keep test fitting until you've got a reasonably good sort of fit. It doesn't matter if it's flapping a little bit. Right, let's zoom you out a little bit. Right, and what we're going to do is going to get a bit of super glue, which I've just got on a nice little pot just here. I'm just scraping it up right on the edge, right on the tip just there, and then I'm just making our first glue. Right, I'm just going to hold that, maybe blow a bit, let it start to bite, maybe press it down a little bit. Right, and that's the first bit of a glue, and as you can see, it's not quite flapping all the way over. Right, maybe I need to move this out the way a little bit. Hold on, I've got loads of stuff all over the place. Let's just move this back a bit. Here we go. Right, let's bring you in a bit closer now. There we go. Right then, so it's sort of not quite flapping over. You're going to be looking at it in this way, and you want it to sort of fall naturally. So now that's sort of glued, what we want to do, getting a cocktail stick, bit of super glue on the cocktail stick, and you want to sort of try and get inside here very carefully and smear on a bit of our super glue. Right, so then what we can do, maybe turn this cocktail stick around, is press this down so as it's going to start to glue that bit more. Right, actually we need a little bit more super glue because that didn't seem to hold at all. So I'm just going to smear some more. If you accidentally, like I've just done, got a bit onto our piece, you can probably see where it's just shining there. Quick cocktail stick, make one pass, one quick pass like so, and try and wipe that up. Right, turn the cocktail stick. Right, if you keep on going past and past, the cotton on the cocktail stick is going to start sticking to your model. Don't worry about it too much. That is a little bit of a shame there, where I've got a bit of super glue on there, but we can hide that, right, because there is another stage to this anyway. And then that's locking down just there. Right, so what we should have is, it's basically gravity is having it go across our tank, and then that last little bit is drooping down basically at a nice 90-degree angle. We might have to sort of come in and bend that a little bit, or maybe add a little bit more super glue, but we want to try and, you know, get that little bit of a flap just at the end. Right, and then we simply, like we have been doing, like I've said, we glue our fuel tank to the model, and then what you should end up with is what we can see over here. So yeah, they're just drooping down. Maybe let's turn this in the right way up, because I've already done this side. As you can see, they're just drooping over and just dangling down that little bit. We've got our Mark 81s as well. I've done the same just there. As you can see, they're just sort of drooping down and letting gravity. There we go, very nice. And basically you want to do that all over, but there is a little bit more to the photo, to this photo etch remove before flight tag we want to do.